In Section 13, we're moving on to intermodal transportation, which, as we said previously, is completely different, both operationally and from a pricing perspective, from LTL and certainly FTL. Within the realm of global logistics, the term intermodal or intermodalism, which that second one really isn't used that much, can have a number of meanings. We're going to use the term intermodal, basically. In general, intermodal transportation means the use of two or more modes of transport for the same shipment, all of which is governed by a single bill of lading. The example we gave way back on an inland point intermodal, where ocean freight and rail to destination is included on the same shipment, that's definitely an intermodal move. Our focus is going to be on domestic intermodal, with pickup of a 53-foot trailer by a truck. Truck delivers to a railhead, a rail yard as it's also called. Goods are railed across the country, and then the final delivery is also done by truck. Last bullet here, just to broaden our perspective a little bit before we come back to domestic intermodal. Sometimes known as multimodal, this mode of transport can exist in both an ocean freight and domestic model. We just gave the example of the IPI move. Ship, truck, rail, truck, that's an IPI move. Ship, but on or near dock rail to truck. On dock rail being actual rail capabilities on the dock, and near dock being close by to a dock. And then the one we're interested in, truck to rail to truck. And the image on the right, a stack train. This is what intermodal transportation looks like in the United States. As we said, for purposes of this module, our focus is on U.S. domestic intermodal transportation that represents the final leg of an import supply chain. For example, as we see in our sub-bullet, and we will be using this example, goods that are originating from a transload facility in close proximity to a U.S. port. Goods came in via ocean freight, they cleared through customs, they got drayed over to a transload facility. The transload operator strips the ocean container, putting the contents into various 53-footers that are going around the country. That is what we're talking about. Second bullet summarizes that rather long description we just gave. Inbound ocean containers terminated at the port and are drayed to the transload operation. Within this scenario, last bullet, the definition of intermodal is the movement of a 53-foot trailer in a truck to rail to truck model from the transload facility to inland distribution centers. But it could be to large stores as well. That's what we're focusing on here. We talked about transload some modules back. Let's do a quick transload refresher, and then we will get into how intermodal supports transload operations. Very quickly, because we did go over this in detail. At its core, transload just means that FCL ocean containers are stripped at a U.S. facility and items are assigned to truck or rail trailers destined for specific locations. Hence the name transload, and the image on the right is indeed a transload facility in Wilmington, California. Quick sub-bullet on that first slide. Outbound trailers from the transload facility are typically, they don't have to be, but are typically to a regional DC, but as we said a moment ago, it could also be out to a very large store. Second bullet, basically, transload facilities are warehouse operations near ocean ports that are usually run by 3PLs. They don't have to be. An importer could have their own building near a port and do their own transload, but they're usually run by 3PLs. As we also said, the key to transload is that the importer has the advantage of being able to allocate the contents of containers just prior to their arrival in the U.S. From an inventory management perspective, that's a big advantage. In other words, transload allows importers to continue to receive demand signals from stores, web sales, etc., as ships approach the U.S. and then allocate inventory based on actual demand. Driven by those demand signals, importers send electronic instructions to the transload operator with details on where to ship the contents of each container, to which DC or store, somewhere in the United States. A trade tip, this type of model is also known as a postponement strategy. The allocation of inventory is postponed until the last possible minute. As we said a moment ago, that's a big advantage to have. But it can't work if the truck transportation, and in this scenario, the intermodal transportation, isn't functioning properly. Really, to summarize our whole story on transload here, our refresher on transload, at the end of the day, transload has 4 essential components. 1, recovery of ocean containers from a terminal and drayage to the transload facility. 2, devanning or stripping of the ocean containers. 3, loading of outbound trailers based on the allocation instructions received from the importer. And here's our important part, domestic on-forwarding of 53-foot trailers to inland destinations. For example, a distribution center. For us, as a note, the focus of this module is on domestic on-forwarding via intermodal transportation. Here we have a quick visual representation of transload operations that transition into intermodal transport. In this case, we'll start on the right-hand side, say goods coming in from Europe into the New York, New Jersey port complex. We have a third-party transload facility in Carteret, New Jersey, which is a geographic area in close proximity to the New York, New Jersey port complex that is known for 3PL activity and transload activity. We're not here to talk too much about transload, so the transload takes place. The drayman, when a 53-foot trailer is ready, is full, will come and pick up the dray, will make the dray to a railhead, a rail yard, drop it off, the train gets railed to wherever it's going, let's say Indianapolis, Indiana, gets to the rail yard at destination, but maybe the customer's site is 50 miles, 100 miles from the rail yard. It's going to have to be drayed out to that customer's domestic distribution center. Right in the middle there, dray to rail to dray is what we're talking about for purposes of our illustrations. This is the last slide in this section. Let's provide a little supply chain perspective entitled Converting Containers to Trailers. When working in a transload environment that engages in domestic on-forwarding, truck or rail, it is very important to be aware of the space differences that exist between ocean containers and domestic trailers. Because ocean containers, a 40-footer, a 40 high cube, a 45-footer, have different space capacities than a 53-foot domestic trailer, the transload operator, importer, and intermodal carrier or carriers have to know how to plan for the quantities of trailers needed in a specific period. A 53-footer is bigger than a 40 or a 40 high cube or even a 45-footer. Because there are different space capabilities in these containers and trailers, we have to know how to plan how many trailers do we need if we're emptying out, if we're devanning 10 ocean containers at a transload facility. That's what we're talking about. Second paragraph. While not an exact science, the general rule for trailer planning is that for every 3 40-foot containers, 2 53-footers will be required. It's a 3-to-2 ratio. Clearly a simple calculation, the use of this basic math helps importers, transload operators, and intermodal carriers to plan for trailer needs based on visibility into the inbound flow of ocean containers. What does that mean? Basically, when an importer uses a SaaS-based trade management platform to see that it has 6 containers due to arrive at a transload facility on a Tuesday, they will have to work with the intermodal provider to have 4 trailers spotted at the transload operation. That's super important. The coordination between the transload operation and the intermodal carrier is critical, just from the perspective of having equipment into which we can load merchandise coming out of the ocean containers. Last paragraph. This type of basic but very important planning has far-reaching effects in areas that include operational efficiency, trailer utilization, the space in the trailers, total landed cost, and cumulative lead times, for sure. This is especially true when importers depend upon a trailer pool at the transload facility that is provided and managed by the intermodal carrier or carriers. A trailer pool being a specified number of trailers that are always going to be positioned at the transload facility, so there's never any lost time when stripping ocean containers and filling 53-footers. Depending on the size of an import program, meaning how many ocean containers are coming in, it might not be a bad idea to work out a trailer pool, even if it's only 3 or 4 trailers, with the intermodal carrier, so time is not lost, operational efficiencies are there, and money is saved, really. Okay, that will be it for the first section on intermodal. Upon our return, as we always do, we'll talk about the players, this time in the intermodal ecosystem.